that. Excellent. Okay, so let's start with searching for properties. So we all know how to sign into the MLS, get to the screen. We're going to click on the matrix X. And then once you're inside MLS, you've got settings and stuff that you will have done already previously. And yet, if we want to go to a search, you're going to have the ability to do searches a couple different ways. One quick way is to go in the search bar at the top. So if you've got an MLS number, you can type that in there at the top and it'll just take you quickly to the property. Apologies, I'm going to turn our lights down. Does that help, guys? Yes. I'm going to zoom in a little bit too. So that's one shortcut in which you could come up here and put in a property address and pull that up. It's going to make suggestions. Do you mean street number and then street name, and it pulls up everything that matches that. Okay, so that's one quick way to go in and take a look at what you've got. Typically, though, you're going to come to your main dashboard and you're going to come up here to search. Note that there's a couple different areas that you can search in: residential, multifamily. So if you are looking for a fourplex, you need to, or more, you need to look under multifamily. Your duplexes will still show up under residential, but that's kind of where it makes a change, is the fourplex into multifamily. Commercial also has a division, and so does land. I'll tell you that rental is not something that agents put a lot of stuff into. So note that if somebody's looking for a rental property, MLS is not necessarily your go-to. I would honestly, as much as I hate to say it, would recommend pointing them towards Zillow. It's probably got the most extensive rental property, or your, if it's short-term that they need something for just a month or so, going to your short-term rental, you know, VRBO or Airbnb. Yeah. Uh-huh. There is not a criteria for rent to own necessarily. And I would say, depending on the area and the price point, and in this market, that might be a real hard sell to find someone able or willing to do that. It might be going, it's just, but no, there's not a field or anything in here that you can see that it, and maybe a property that's sitting, or someone that's in, you know, currently renting that would be interested in selling it eventually, kind of a thing. A lot of times, guys, and it's a choice in how you run your business, when people wanted to know about rentals, I oftentimes would say, hey, that's not my forte, it's not my business. You know, let me refer you to somebody that does rentals, just because it's not the best use of my time. Now, if it's, they're going to get into, because it's hard, because you're like, well, they're going to rent for a year and then they want to buy, so I want to be their agent. And yet you using your time to try to help them find an apartment may not be the best use of your time. Right? So you've got to make that business decision. Is it that you could refer them to, here's a great, you know, websites to search for that apartment. There are some people, if they want a condo downtown and they want to rent, reach out to me, let me know. I've got a couple resources down there that do both rental and purchasing of the condos, but to connect them and then to just keep in contact so that you still are top of mind when it's time to buy. But you aren't going to get paid on the rental side of things, and you've got to be best use of your time, kind of. Other things in the search criteria area, you see here that you have member as an option, and office, and then open houses. And that's where we're going to go look for when we want to search for open houses, whether it's agent tour on Tuesday or open houses that we want to go preview on a Saturday or a Sunday. Where do you see open house under search criteria? Office, public record. Yep, click that more button and I bet that it'll show up there for you. So under member, if you ever want to look up another agent, you can always click member and look by their last name, or you can look by office ID or office name as well, first name. Okay. So a couple things here, a couple more things on this main screen I want to point out to you. If there's ever a time that you've gone and done a search and then you're at the office and then you need to run home, and or you're going to do some other stuff and you're like, man, I really want to go back to that search I was doing for comparable properties for the house that I'm going to show today, or that I showed earlier my buyers liked. Look up here in the upper right hand corner, guys. You see where it says recent searches? If you click on recent searches, it's going to bring up all of the houses that you've searched for recently and all your recent searches. And so you can then click on that and it'll bring up that search again for you. Guys, today I brought water. It was like, oh, I was thinking. I also ate lunch. Good day. Does that make sense? I mean, there'll be times where you're going to be like really, or you're not going to believe it, but there'll be times that you're comping for showings you're doing later, and you're going to get a phone call from someone and they're going to say, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, we want to go look at a house. And you're going to be so excited that you're going to go type that in. And then you're going to be like, oh, I just lost it, all that search that I had to change the criteria on like 6 times. And then that day you can go use recent searches and just shoot me a text and be like, thanks. If you think you wouldn't have found it on your own. Just kidding. Okay. So normally when you come into your dashboard again, and you're going to look for a property, you will more than likely want to click on residential if you're working in the residential field, and then this residential quick. Okay, and again, I don't know if some of you guys have already done the MLS training. Some of this will be a little bit of a repeat of that. Note that anytime that you do select something in a field, so let's say that under county, I selected Anderson, or maybe I just accidentally selected something and I'm like, not sure why nothing is showing up as active between 0 and 500,000. You've got your count down here at the bottom left. You guys see that? Look for your blue boxes, because that's where it's like maybe you click something that you don't realize you clicked. In order to unclick it, you just will need to hold down the control, or is it command? Apple people, Candace, is it command? What is it called? Command?
Yes.
Or command if you're an Apple person. Select it again, and you'll know that all of the things have been unselected if it goes back to white. Does that make sense? And then see how our matches are 16,306 or 1,636. So note that's a quick way to see, oh, do I have something selected that I don't remember having selected? A lot of times when you're going in and searching for a property, sometimes if I'm not sure, a buyer has sent me a property and I'm a buyer's agent, and that's what we're talking about today, and I'm not sure what the status of that property is, I do come over here and just unclick everything and then search by the street number. So again, I'm going to use 7435, and then you can enter the street name. Note if there's a southwest or a north or something of that sort, that's the direction prefix. I'm only putting Jefferson on here. Sometimes it's like, I don't know if it's street or why is it not showing up, or I don't know exactly how to spell Alhambra or something. You can go and just put a wild card after it, and it's going to bring up anything that starts with that. Does that make sense? The star, the asterisk is a wild card in any of the fields. What I would say there too, guys, is sometimes back in the day, if you're looking up an old record, they would put, a listing agent would put Jefferson Street. So if I just put in Jefferson, it may not come back because it wants me to put in Jefferson Street to bring back that record. So sometimes that's where I got in the habit of just putting that wild card after whatever the street name is. You don't have to, but I would recommend it. And again, you're always kind of wanting to kind of look at what your match is. Okay, I've got 2 down here. You can kind of check before hitting enter, but that's one way to just directly look up a property, and it's going to bring up everything. Again, I'm trying to think, I should know of some stuff that's, let's see. Since I unselected everything, it's going to bring up all the different statuses. You've got different views, and let me know if there's anything. Man, I'm telling you, it's the talking.
So without selecting it, it's bringing up all the statuses of all time.
Yes. Yep.
Because this is a good tip, because I have been selecting everything and then going and taking off the time period, 0 to 180, so that I can get all time if I'm looking for something that might have been old.
Right, like, because you have, yeah, from when they bought it maybe or something, right?
Yeah.
Yep, so if you remove everything, you can do it that way. Okay, so other things to, my God. I did that whole team meeting and did not cough it like, oh. Right, it's like but it's like I get a little bit of dust or something right back there, and it just happens. Okay, as a buyer's agent though, sometimes too, like, we're gonna go find the property, and that's probably how I'd recommend finding the property sometimes when someone sends it to you, just because it might be in a show for backup status or a pending status, and you're gonna go, why can't I find this, right? So I sometimes would just say, if you're just looking for a property, go look for it in that sense. Now, if we have a buyers that we've done our buyer consultation and they said, Elizabeth, we're really interested in a house that's in the Roland Park area and or Mission, and we would be willing to spend up to we're willing to spend up to 350,000. So you're like, wow, it says 4304 as the area. Here you're going to enter in your different statuses. I would recommend active, show for backup, pending, contingent, and pre-MLS. And this is where I'm going to go send a search out to people. I'm going to tell you why I would recommend doing show for backup and pending as soon as I get done coughing. No, it's really fun. And it is the training. It's you guys.
Yeah.
I do think it's you OP people, because I was in here with the Plaza people and I was just fine. For an hour. It was just fine. Not one cough. Something about OP. Okay. When you're sending stuff out to your people, because what we typically will do is we're going to create a search for those buyers, and then we're going to make it an auto email. So it's automatically sending out all the new results to them. The reason I suggest doing show for backup and pending is because if you don't, they automatically just fall off that person's search. So they may sign in on Saturday morning and see that 123 Main Street is one of their, is active. And then they go to sign in the afternoon and it's just disappeared. Because it's only going to be returning the results that you've got set for the search. And the way that helps you as a buyer's agent is it's really helpful sometimes mentally for them to sign in and see, oh, there's 2 active listings and there's 17 show for backups and 13 pending. So that's mentally helpful for them to see that look, I don't have any choices. I need to get a little more aggressive with my offers, right? It's also so it doesn't fall off the earth. Secondly, show for backup, you can go make offers on show for backup properties. And you can go and be a backup offer. So that's why I want them to see that. Okay, so those are a couple mental reasons why we do that. The other reason I would recommend having show for backup and pending on there is that when properties are in a show for backup status on Zillow and some other websites, they don't show as pending, they show as active. The quickest way to lose control with your buyers is for them not to trust that you're sending them all the properties. And all of a sudden, they're not looking at your MLS search. They are over on Zillow or realtor.com or whatever other website, because it's like, well, Elizabeth, why didn't you send me 123 Main? It meets our criteria. Why isn't that showing up in your search? And they're going to send you 1234 Main, and you're going to say, it's in a show for backup status. I'm sorry that Zillow hasn't changed it. It's a trick that they do to try to get more leads to send to the agents that they're selling those leads to, kind of a thing. Does that make sense? So there's kind of a mental game there, and that they're able to take and keep an eye on things. And then also I would recommend doing your pre-MLS so that they can see what's coming. And then finally, including contingent. And I don't know that you would normally think about using contingent and including contingent, but a contingent home is a home that you can steal from somebody else. So you can go and write an offer on a contingent property and serve that original buyer you can serve a kick out notice. And guys, that is totally fair game for you to do that. Yeah, so contingent contract is if someone has gotten a contingent contract accepted on a home, they'll change it to a contingent status. And with that original buyer has a kick out notice, in which if a second buyer comes in and makes an offer and the seller wants to accept that offer, they will serve what is known as a kick out notice to the first buyer. And there's terms in that first buyer's original offer that was accepted that says you have 72 hours or you have 1 week to buy this home, not contingent on your sale of your home. Let's use the example of 72 hours. If that original buyer has 72 hours to either sell their home or to buy the home without making a sale, they have to prove that to the sellers. And if they can, then they get to keep the house. If they cannot, that contract is canceled, your buyer moves in. Now note, sometimes agents will write contingent on the sale and close of a property, even though their buyers are qualified to do it without doing that, without selling their home. So there's a chance that you could go write that contingent or that offer on that contingent property. And you could say, serve that kick out notice, we're ready to play. And that original buyer will go, we really didn't want to, but here's our pre-approval letter. Yes, we can buy it without selling our house. And then your buyer needs to understand like, okay, yeah, we didn't win. We aren't going to get it. Some of your buyers aren't going to want to play that game. It's a part of your buyer consult sometimes to say, here's what contingent means. I had consumers that would say, Elizabeth, I don't want to go look at something I can't possibly have. So don't show me show for backups. Do not show me contingent properties. I don't want to fall in love with something I could possibly not get. But as a strategic buyer's agent in a low inventory market, guys, get your boxing gloves on, go after them. Let's go, right? It's okay to do that. Yeah. Show for backup traditionally means that and it's changed over the last few years. So in the past, show for backup had meant that they were in the inspection period and they hadn't gotten through inspection renegotiations yet. Now, show for backup doesn't necessarily mean that, right? So now a consumer has to, if they're in for show for backup status, they are required to show their home for a backup contract. So they could be in pending status and still be in inspections. Does that make sense now? They changed the rules on that. I would say the other thing with show for backup on the listing side of things is in show for backup, your days on market are still accumulating. So as a listing, if you're in show for backup status and you change to pending status later, let's say like 10 days after you were out, then you stop your days on market then. Does that make sense? And that's for like another day as a listing agent, but that's kind of the difference. But you can show for backup. And if any agent is saying, no, we're not accepting any showings in their show for backup, you could report them to the MLS and say, hey, they're not letting me in, kind of a thing.
So why would you show for backups? Because you feel like the offer you just accepted could fall apart, or?
Yes, that is some of the benefit of show for backup is that you already have another one in place, and it makes it to where it's easier for you to negotiate the inspection stuff. You're kind of already like, if something happens to the first one, you automatically get to move on to the second one. But yes, as a listing agent, if I have a backup offer and this first offer is asking me to do a bunch of stuff on the inspections, I can be like, I'm good. I already know that I've got somebody standing behind you.
That also probably puts pressure on the first person offered, right?
Correct. But no, and if you don't get your offer accepted, be a backup offer every day of the week. As a buyer's agent, you can withdraw that at any time if they find another property. Just have to do it in writing. But okay. Does that all make sense, guys? I got my lunch and my teeth here, I think. Okay. Great news. Awesome. Okay. So at this point, I often would go in and select what city. So if you're going to do the town, like our client was wanting to do Roland Park, you can type in Roland Park. If you want to have more than one, this is one of the things that I dislike about this new system. Put a comma and then you're going to select your second one. See down below here too, you can see if you've messed anything up because it says 23. Okay, then look at me getting fancy here. If you have something where you don't want an area, you can use the explanation, or here, let me do it a little differently. Oh, good, there we go. If you don't want something, so let's say that in this case, within this zip, within that area, we specifically did not want 66205 to be included. And in any of the fields, just like the star is a wild card, the explanation point, am I saying that properly? It means not.
The exclamation point does?
Means not. Okay, so if there was a time that we were saying like we want everything in Roland Park and Mission except for 66205, we could use an explanation point and it would remove any that were 66205. And before.
Most of the other fields have the choice of picking not.
Yes.
City subdivision.
Yep. So if you also said, I want to do, let's say 3, I don't know why it would be like, so 3+ bathrooms and yet not 3.1 for some reason, you could do it in that same kind of way. Does that make sense to eliminate? So that's a not field, which I think is always helpful to know. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, guys. We want to make sure that we are, not putting in fields, because if it's not selected, it's gonna not show it. So less is more a little bit with your fields, because you don't want to get too specific. Like I think we talked yesterday, if somebody says they want a pool, there's a section that you could go select pool, but I'm not going to put pool, because if a house doesn't have pool listed, but it happens to have a pool, it wouldn't show up. Does that make sense? Typically how I do my beds and baths is if they want a 3+ bedroom, then I'm going to say 3+, which means 3 or more. We know in our bathrooms, correct, that 2.1, your half baths are a 0.1. So 2.1 is 2.5 bathrooms. 2.2 means 2 full baths and 2 half baths. So I'm going to say 2.1.5, which is going to probably eliminate everything in this area codes now, or in those cities. No, so that would be how I would handle those things. The same thing with your listed days back. If there's a time where you're running and you want to get only things that are fresh on the market, you can go into the list days back field and say, I just want to see what's come on the market the last 7+ days. And then it'll show up only what's come up on the market in the last 7 days. If there's ever a time that you're running comps, guys, and I know I'm kind of jumping all over, is everyone following? Okay. If there's time that you're running comps and you only want to see what sold between January of 2021 and December of that was listed during, let's say, the month of January, you can go in and put your range like that.
So you can do that over there with the 0 to, 30, 60, 180, like I want sold for the last 30 days, 6 months.
For 30 days, but not what's listed, right? And so I'm a nerd and I'll do a lot of extracts and I'll do a lot of just data analysis. So that's why I bring that up. But yes, like, so this is just what went on the market since January. If something was active, but it was listed in December, it's not going to show up here. If something was active, but it was listed after January 1st, it's not going to show up here. Does that make sense?
Yes, so in those days would be just what was active in those days.
That was listed.
And
The list date was
yes,
within that date.
became active.
Correct.
Yep. You couldn't put it right. Could you do it right then?
So that would just say that it was active during those days.
Oh.
And it would
I see.
only be things that are currently active. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So that's where you're trying to that's how those fields play differently together. Any questions when it comes to one more on the status. So if we are running comps for something, go ahead, Mo.
What if you just want to select a certain house, like, the buyer, he wants a house from 500 to $600,000.
Yep. So the way you're going to do between 500 and 600,000 is you're going to come over here and you're going to say 500 in the upper right. Do you see list price? 500 to 600. And that's only going to show me the houses listed between 500,000 and 600,000 in the upper right. Do you see? Now, and are you saying to take out you can take out all the rest of the criteria. But if he definitely wants 3+ bedrooms and 2.5+ baths, we want to make sure we leave that in there. So that's where you're putting your criteria of price. I would encourage you that if you have someone looking between 500 and 600, that you might consider putting in 475 to 600 or to 610. And the reason I say that is, like, look, we've got 6 matches right now. If I put in 475 to 610, I'm looking above and below the price range. And by doing that, let's look at our results. If I would have just put 500 to 600,000, then I would have not got 448, 465, 475, 485, 495. There's 4 properties that would not have come up that might be a good fit for this buyer.
And those are comparable.
I mean, yeah, right. Like if you've got a buyer that's creative and is willing to do some interior paint or, you know what I mean, replace some carpets and refinish some hardwood floors. Yes. But also, like, the point being, Candace, this 595 would not have shown up in that search. And here you're looking like all over the place for a property for your buyer. God forbid you not show them one that's 5,000 under. Right. Because it's just because that agent is listed at 495. That's why I would think about They just want to be between 5 and 6. Expand that a bit more, Mo.
And a little bit more picky, they want to watch out.
Okay, let me stay here for just a second. I want to explain one more thing and then we'll go there, okay? We can use your example. I like that. I would, the other thing that might happen sometimes, we put in here, you're going to see all your search criteria at the bottom of what you have in the search criteria at the bottom here. You guys see that? It's a good way to check your work. Why isn't anything showing up? Again, do I have something selected that I shouldn't have selected? What do I, what's going on here? It's a good way to problem solve down there. As you can see, we have 610 as the upper limit of what they should show us. If there's ever a time in your search results that one comes up that's listed at, let's say, 640, and you're like, why the heck is a 640 house showing up when I had my upper limit as 610? The reason being is a listing agent can go in and do range pricing. And what that means is the actual list price of the property is 640,000. And yet there's a field that as a listing agent, you can enter a lower price so that it will show up in the searches up to that price. So that listing agent may have gone and done range pricing down to 610 or down to 600. And that's why it's showing up.
And you'll show us how to do that as a listing agent when we get to that. class.
Correct. I will show you how to do that and there's strategy behind it, 100%, when to do it, why to do it kind of a thing. I just be prepared for if there's ever a time when your client says, why are you sending me a 640 house? I was firm on this. You already pushed me to 600, Elizabeth. Why are you sending me 640? And then you can say, oh, these agents do this range pricing thing. That's why it's showing up. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they will actually sell it to you for 610. Okay. It's just a trick that agents do. We've got all kinds of tricks. Okay. Let's go back to what, let's finish up statuses, Mo, and then I'm going to show you how to select the other criteria. Okay. On your statuses, if you're running comps, I would in this market reduce it down and start with 0 to 90 days. If you can't find enough comps within 0 to 90 days sold, then you can extend it, change some of your criteria, or you can extend it to 180. The market is just working really, really fast. And oftentimes we'll talk about carts at the end. I'll go do a search one way, find some comps, add it to a cart. I'll go back, change my criteria, look at it a different way, maybe further out, maybe 4 bedrooms instead of just 3. Maybe one that is a different floor plan kind of a thing, or maybe a more than a mile out kind of a thing, and then add more to a cart. So, you can do that, but okay. Mo, tell me again, where's your client? What's the town that they're looking at? Overland Park?
Yes.
Okay, let's do your example. Overland Park. How many bedrooms?
4 bedrooms, walkout basement. Less than 5 years old.
Okay. They have a bed and bath. What's their bathroom preference?
No,
No preference on the bathrooms? Okay. Any garage preferences?
the garage, 3 or 4.
3, so at least 3?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do they have, I'm going to take solds off of here for now. And you said they want a single family?
Single family.
Okay, so we're going to select single family under description. And then they want all the bedrooms on what level? They want the master on the primary on the main level?
If it's the main level, it's better, but it's not.
They're open?
below.
Okay, because you would select your floor plans here under stories. Okay, and then you said they wanted walkout basement? Okay, so under basement, we're going to select walkout. I'm going to be really smart and say walk up too, because like we said yesterday, if there's 6 steps, I'm sure they could get over that, right? If it's a little one. Okay, I'm down to 27 matches over here. And you want houses, right? You're like, Mo, what's going on here? There's a lot of houses to pick from. But hey, Candace, I got show for backup pending and selected up here too. So let's see how that plays out. Okay, and then we want to do 5 years or less, correct?
Yes.
So under age, you'll select 2 and then 3 to 5. And then I believe I need to say under construction over here.
We want it under construction.
Could
No,
they don't want new build?
Yeah, if it is available, yeah, but
Okay.
when I check, it said the waiting list is for 1 year.
Okay,
Permission grants and.
Yep. so they used to have under construction over with the age. It really does upset me that they made it a separate category because it's kind of a pain. What I would recommend here in the current market is that you do comb through that yourself by leaving under construction on their mow. And the reason being is sometimes builders are gonna put those under construction, they've got some inventory that they haven't put on yet until it gets closer to completion. And so I'd hate for your client to miss out on one of those that are being kind of held. And now that's 90 days out, or it's 90 days out, they put it in. And since you don't have under construction selected, they wouldn't see it.
Okay, so can you, we have 18 matches. Can you take under construction off?
Yep.
Okay, so
You think it's not
yeah. so
creating anything
your-
new.
Your theory at the beginning, if it's not marked, it's included.
Right.
So that's what happened when they moved it. So you don't have to mark under construction. If you've said 2 years or less, it's gonna show up.
I don't know that it is though. Oh, 2 years less. Let's see. Let's do a little trust.
Yeah, because I've done quite a few searches where I end up I have a ton of new construction. I didn't want that. So I have to go back and say new construction not. And I certainly didn't mark to bring new construction.
Oh yeah, look.
Yeah.
You were right.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at us all playing together. Okay, so I'm gonna slow down for a second. And what she's saying is you don't have to select under construction if you've got 2 years or less selected in this field. Are you guys following that?
Okay.
Because it's including the new construction when you have 2 years or less.
Well, what if the MLS, didn't put the age?
You have to, it's a required field.
Okay.
And then on new construction, guys, I'll just tell you here, ECD is estimated completion date. So 0 to 45 days out. And then we've got 91 to 150 days out. So be sure to check that on any of the new construction stuff you're selling, because it's really embarrassing when you're like, awesome, yes, let's go look at that house. And then you pull up and there's a hole in the ground and you've got no house to show them. Okay. So that's on new construction. How is there any other criteria, Mo, that we didn't include? You said walkout,
Yeah, it was.
5 years or less. Okay. Is everyone following kind of what we've gone through to get our search results and how you would kind of go about doing that? Again, I would make sure your range prices or your price for your window for your list price is wider than what they give you. Because they're going to want to end up between 5 and 6, but they probably would be okay with a 460 house if it was a good opportunity. Okay. Let's go ahead and click results. And you've got a couple, when you get to the results, you'll see that you still have here up here 3 different tabs, guys: criteria, map, results. At any time, you can go from results to map if you want to kind of get a feel for where you are and where a property is. And then you can click on each one of those houses and click on the MLS to get taken back to the results for that specific property. Does that make sense? Sometimes it's helpful for me to be like, well, this is a great house in Overland Park, but I'm not exactly, well, you should know 169th Street is like way out there. We'll just drive and then drive somewhere. I am gonna offend you Overland Park people. Like, can you tell?
Don't you
No,
work in an office yet?
I do, I know. I'm telling you, I'm still working on my PC and my OP love, okay? Okay, Kansas City. It is, yes, pack a bag. No, so that's a nice way to go back and forth if you're trying to figure out and get your, your bearings, right? There's times when I show in Lee's Summit where 12 years in and I still don't know exactly where I am. I gotta like get some bearings on where does this fall. But you can switch between the tabs in that sense there. You can also go straight back to your criteria just on clicking on the upper left there. The other thing I would tell you is on your results, you've got couple different views. You can do single line. And you're doing this drop down that's going to change you between those different views. And then you can change how many are shown on each page as well. I used to always look at agents. The 360 view is nice because you've got all the different. Any questions when it comes to that? It's going to usually put you on the agent single line view when it gives you the results initially.
Why do you like the 360 property view?
Well, okay, I guess I should say, it puts you on the agent single, and that's a real quick, like, oh, shoot, I only have 4. And I said, shoot, oh, shoot, I only have 4 active properties to look at here. And I can real quickly see when I look at the single view, what neighborhood it is. So all of them are in South Point. So it looks like we're buying a house in South Point if this is the only criteria that we're going to use. And then it gives me a quick view of the pricing when I look in the single view, beds and baths, and then like the floor plan. I like the one that's the 360 view when I'm really like looking at and kind of trying to determine what's going on with the properties, because there's so much information here. I'm going to try to zoom in just because I think we've got here the status at the top. You've got list price. I'm going to stick with me here. Okay. So everybody watch why I do this. The current list price is 624,380. If you scroll to the very bottom, you have two things down here. Original list price, which is the price when that house was originally listed. Now, this is new construction, so it may not have changed. But if there's ever a time that a property's been on the market for, let's say, 10 days, and the list price says 625, and you're like, why is it still on the market? Or have they done any price reductions? Scroll down to the bottom and you're gonna see here, oh, it says 625 now up in the upper right, but they started at 650. Maybe that's why they're still in the market, because they have reduced it 25,000. You see here, it says previous list price. What that means is if it was listed previously within the last 90 days with another agent or with this agent, and it had a list price maybe of 675, that's what would be reflected here. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So 90 days is that key time period that for days on market to start over? It has to be off the market for 90 days.
Yes.
Then days on market would start over.
Great listing agent question, but yes. And as a buyer's agent, because you've got combined, and this is hard because it's new construction. Let's see if we can get to one that's a good example that's not new construction. South Point is not, that's going to be, we're still in new construction. How about this? I'm going to do like you recommended, and we're going to come up here and we're going to say not under construction. No results.
You might also have to put never occupied and model not to sell, that's what I do, but.
Here we go.
also no results.
Because I had
5
less than
years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, guys, let's use this one as an example here. It might be a little bit easier because there's more fields for us to look at. And remind me of your question. I so apologize. Oh, days on
90
market.
days, yeah.
So let's talk on days on market. You see DOM is how many days it's been on the market since that it's been active. It might have been in pre-MLS for like 6 months prior to this, but this is like the day showing started, days on market. We just talked about that if something's in show for backup, it's going to continue to accumulate those days on market. CDOM right above it is combined for what? Say it again. Nope, nope. CDOM is for combined days on market. That means if they were on the market and they temporary withdraw or they canceled or they expired, then relisted, this listings date would be 2 DOM, and this date up here might be 379 because it was listed previously for 377 days with somebody else. Does that make sense? And that's why you would have 2 different numbers there. It's also a game that some people like to play, and there's times where houses do expire and they get listed with another agent, but that's why you're getting 2 different dates there, or 2 different date numbers there. I want to show you something else on price when it comes to price history. You can go to property history here and get some information as a buyer's agent on some of the history of the price of the property. Again, this is a great example. No, it's not. I'm being sarcastic. If there would have been a price reduction, you would have seen that it was a new listing at 500,000, and then you would see a price reduction to where they changed the price to 475. If it had previously been listed or it sold 7 years ago, you would have that information, down here of what price it was sold at and who sold it. And you could, let me see if I can go back, guys, and find us a better example of something that is, this one will probably have some more price history. Come on, no. Okay, these are too new. This is what's wrong with Overland Park, guys. Give me some Brookside where things have run around for 100 years. Kinds of dirt. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm not making any friends, you guys. Oh, you guys are gonna be like, we don't like her. Paul, can you send her back? Like, no.
No, I'm just gonna start making comments about.
You should bring it.
All the way to the plaza.
Bring it. You're like, hey, my nice dry basement I was in this morning. Like, it was so lovely down there. Okay, this is a better example, y'all. So this is one in which you could see that it's currently listed at 520,000. It went pending on the 23rd, while listed at 520,000. Does that make sense? It's not what it sold for, but that's what the price was at when it went off the market. You can see that it previously was listed with Hobie at a list price of $399,900 back in 2016. It did not sell and the listing canceled. Do you see that here? What a difference,
That's insane.
right? 6 years. Okay, and then you'll also, like, some of this data is gonna be from the previous, they just switched us over to a new MLS, so that's where some of the data looks a little bit wonky. But you can see the total history. In 2012, it sold for 329,000. In 2003, it sold for 276,000. You can click on these pictures, and if there are pictures still existing, then it should take you to, Hobie might be smart and delete all his, some of the agents. Nope. So now I can even go, do you guys follow? I kind of click quickly there. If you wanted to see back when Hobie had it listed in 2016, what it looked like and what changes might have happened since then, or for example, if it would have sold in 2016 and we kind of want to get a feel for how many updates did these sellers actually make to make a difference in the price of what they bought it at a couple of years ago and what they're selling it for now, you can click on the MLS link here, and then you can look at the photos from when they bought it, which is kind of sometimes helpful to see how much of changes did they actually really make. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I heard there's some guy that's buying those furniture houses, and he's not doing any work for them, and putting them right back on the market for like. This is just talking about. it.
I know, but
So much
like,
of, of a markup, and like, he's not doing a single thing, and you can go through the pictures. Good luck with that.
right? Hey,
If you would
Candace,
want
people
to-
got too much time on their hands. Good for him. Good for him. Good for
I was
him.
only about
And I
that.
have a question.
Right? Yes.
Could you go back to that history?
Yep. Property history. Everyone sees where I'm going to do that, right? Okay.
So on
What
the
else?
first one, what is WRK to free MLS? And what's in your-
Like it's a working status, like you can go in, and again, great listing question. You're great. It's good. When you're getting ready to put a house on the market, you can go in and save your work. So you can work on that MLS listing over time and go in and enter a couple fields and then save it. And then come back 2 days later and in a couple fields, kind of a thing, is my best guess. So to get to the old pictures, I swear to God, Vince, you used to be able to just click on the pictures and it would do it for you. But I clicked on this MLS number. See how it's a hyperlink? And it took me to the old listing. So this is, see how it was from 2016? That's how I got to it. And you can see all kinds of information about whether it had a new roof or all of the different things here. Okay. Are we doing good, guys? Great. A couple other things. We've got above grade finish. So that's what's above first, second, third floor. And then your below grade is going to be your basement finish. You can check people's math because the total square footage is 4,067. If someone has on here that it's a finished basement, but they don't have anything finished, or sometimes they'll include the finished basement, and like just check your math sometimes. That doesn't always add up when people enter it incorrectly.
Then I have a question. So when you're doing comps and like you do a CMA and it shows average square foot, or it'll show cost per square foot, is that dividing? I think it is dividing it by the total. But yesterday you said something that was a ding, ding, ding for me that I don't know how to do, but it does make sense. That, and I think it was you that said it, below grade is
Is-
not worth as much. as
Correct.
above grade. I
Correct.
know that's a listing question too, probably, but
I believe it I don't know for sure what it goes off of. That would be a really good thing to run a test on. And how I would say that you could do that is select that listing. If you go to stats here at the bottom, it will tell us square foot 4,000. That probably goes off of the total.
yeah.
Since it's pending, it's not gonna, so that would be my guess, is to just do a trial and error and do a little research. Guys, all of the MLSs are like, you figuring it out, like, so fun. Okay, so you've got your lot size, which is what this LSZ stands for. So that's how big it is, the lot size. Year built, other things to point out. This lovely section here, have you guys the photos? I know this sounds stupid, and tell me if I'm going too low. What, the photos? Yes, I love to look at houses. My name is Candace. Hey, I love to look at houses too. So you can either just click on the photo and it's gonna bring one big one up. Or if you want to, from this page, this little box over a box is gonna bring it up in an album format, which is a little quicker to look through. Does that make sense? If you ever get to where you accidentally click on it and you wanna like look at it one at a time, sure. You can always just go back to that other view by clicking album, and it's going to show you all of them. It's just a much easier, quicker way to look at them. I know that sounds silly to say, but now you're coughing, I'm telling you. Let's continue on. Before we come back to this section, you've got your floor plan. Sometimes you're going to have more than one floor plan listed. So it might say 2-story or 3-story because they want to make sure that it's a 3-story, but they don't want it to be excluded if someone's only searching for a 2-story kind of a thing. You've got your garages, basement. I would also make to look at your fireplaces. I mean, that's all pretty self-explanatory. This is where we have our schools, and I'm going to show you how to, I promise I'll show you how to look that up. We're going to talk about scheduling showings another day, guys. It's a whole nother thing. It's actually on Thursday that we're going to talk about showing houses. Super excited for that. But you can click here to add it to your showing cart and go directly into showing time to schedule that showing. View documents. If there's ever a time a listing agent says, all the documents are on MLS. Why are you bothering me? The seller's disclosure is on MLS. Pull it off of there. That's what they're meaning, is that they want you to go in and pull it under the view documents in the MLS. If there's ever a time that you're like, hey, listing agent, can I get the seller's disclosure? My people want to make an offer. And they're like, oh yeah, it's on MLS. And you're like, no, it's not, because I'm looking at it and there's no view documents. If there's no documents uploaded, this hyperlink will not exist on the listing. So it is perfectly acceptable for you in your nicest voice to say, listing agent, I'm so sorry. They're actually not appearing online. Would you mind sending that over to me? And sometimes you can say, and you might want to upload them, but a lot of times as a buyer's agent, I'm not telling them that, because if I'm the only one with the seller's disclosure, I got a head start with my buyers, and none of those other buyer agents need it, right? Girl, like, hey, I'm telling you, get the gloves out. Like, we're fighters when we're buyer's agents. Okay. So under view supplements, you're going to find things like seller's disclosures, lead-based paint. If you're looking at a house that was built before 1979, you might also find fun things like home improvements and affiliated business disclosures. All that kind of stuff is going to be under the disclosures. You just click on those to open them up, save them to your computer, that kind of a thing. Any questions there? Okay. View property on a map is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to bring it up on a map. You can zoom in and out. You also have the ability to do satellite. Guys, I would so encourage you, anytime you're going to go look at houses, anytime that you're picking out houses to look at, for you to pull up the map. Because there are times when a house is listed at, like this one, for example, would anyone have known that it was this close to 143rd Street? I don't know that looking at 14306 Woodland or Woodward Street, like, would have triggered in my mind. And there'll be sometimes that the address is super creative and you're not going to realize it's on a busy street. Take the time to look at it on the property on the map so that you can be like, oh, Jessica, I thought you said you didn't want to live on a busy street. I don't know if you've ever traveled on 143rd, but it does get a little busy there. And maybe we don't go look at this one, right? So you're going to be able to see that, like, hey, it actually built, backs up to a busy street, would be my recommendation. It also gives you the ability to get a little bit more on the property. I mean, if it's right by an entrance, is that going to get more, traffic, those kinds of things. Sound good? That's the map. RPR, property details, is another link. This is stuff that is a little bit newer, guys, so I will ask you to forgive me that I didn't use it a ton of my time, but you can go on and get all kinds of different property information if it ever loads. A little bit of about the list price, their value of what they assume it is. Don't go off of that. I would not put a whole lot of weight in it, but you've got some additional information here for you to share with people. You've got like the school ratings that might be helpful if that's important to your people. Again, I didn't use that a ton. The other thing is Relist full property detail is one that I would use more. That's got more of your tax information and such. So if you're clicking on this Relist property full detail, this is a great one in the sense it's got to have the owner's names. Again, you're going to pull for when you're writing an offer, the seller's names. Typically you pull that off of the seller's disclosure for what you're going to put on the contract. We don't always work with the best agents. So this is a nice double check moment where you could go and say, well, the seller's disclosure says, Jason and, James or Jamie, and it's spelled differently to say which way is it, or if there's a trust kind of a thing. This is how they're in title, guys. So how they're on the tax record is how they're currently entitled on the property. And that's the names here. Also, if there's ever a question on, you could double check zip codes, that kind of things. The other things I really like about this is it's gonna have your legal description, which you need when making an offer. So that's a field on the contract that you're gonna wanna pull from here. And again, guys, we are under Relist property full detail. I know I talk fast, so I apologize. This is gonna have the tax assessments here. So this is what it was assessed in 2020, and you're like, that's gibberish to me. But a reason I would say that as a buyer's agent, it's important to take a small breather here and look at this. It was tax assessed for $439,000 in 2020. That's what the taxes were based on, which in 2020 ended up being $5,600. The property is currently for sale for $520,000. Sometimes the difference in those two numbers, guys, that's a difference of what, $90,000? Some properties that, $90,000 is gonna make a difference in somebody's tax bill. Does that make sense? Sometimes you're looking at something that hasn't sold, it hasn't been updated, and it's showing the property value, the taxes are assessed against 220, and now it's selling for 410. If your people are on a tight budget, you don't want them to be super surprised that when they buy the house and it closes, that the tax go up to the 410 amount. Does that make sense? Because what happens when they close? The title company has to report it when they record it. And then the tax assessor goes, wait a minute, that house isn't that's worth 410. We're up in the price of the taxes. Does that make sense? And you don't ever want to get caught where you didn't warn your people that these taxes might double. Okay, I'm gonna just.
Is it 1.4?
The mill assessment or whatever that thing is, Mo. I think this is a good question for a tax person. It's the same thing I have with the lender stuff. The mills are all different. I just know that when there's that big of a difference, there's going to be a change. And what I typically would do when I had a buyer that was tight on budget or there was that drastic of a change is I'd say, hey, Courtney over at Platinum, could you do me a quick favor? What are the taxes going to be when it's 410? Can you just real quick? And she's like, because that's what they do. And then she shoots back a number and then I take it to my clients because I don't need to be an expert in all things, just the buying and the selling. But so that's my 2 cents there. As we continue down, guys, you've got on here the square footage. So building square foot is going to be total square footage of the property. And above grade again is the first, second, third floors. And then you sometimes have on here basement square footage and then what is finished. So that would be what I would take into consideration there. So those are always good to kind of go take a look at. As we continue down, the other fun facts, you've got again, what they think the range value is of the property. I wouldn't give it a whole lot of weight. This is similar to Zillow that they're just taking it depends on what part of town you're in, but they're just taking averages with square footage of other houses. It's not necessarily like what this one's worth. So I wouldn't be necessarily making major life decisions or telling your clients to. This is history on the listing information, but if you continue to scroll down, guys, this is mortgage history. That's very interesting. There is a mortgage against it of $2.9 million.
Wow. How is that possible? They probably use it to fix the inside, right?
Well, it's not a $2.9 million house.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that was a typo or if they took out some kind of a business loan against it. I have a feeling it was a typo. So isn't that interesting? But you can see that they had a mortgage where it was a resale. So refi means they refinanced it to a 10-year mortgage loan. Here they bought 329 was the mortgage amount. So that's the loan amount. They may have put down 20%. So the actual purchase price was more. This is how much money they borrowed. And then you've got, it was a VA loan for 30 years. Here they had this couple, Gary and Carolyn, had a 30-year where they refinanced it at 201. The reason I point this out, guys, is sometimes it can give you a little bit of a view into what the seller's situation might be. If they bought it 2 years ago, or if they bought it 10, kind of a thing to see how much they might owe on it. Not that it matters. The market value is the market value, but it might give you a little understanding of like what's going on. And if you just want to be nosy, it's totally legal for you to go look up your friends and family. I didn't say that. I've never done that. What? No. Okay. Any questions when it comes to the Relist and that kind of stuff? They do have a neighborhood profile that you can click on here as well and look at other houses in the neighborhood to kind of get a feel for what other houses are selling for. I believe there's a map function on here. I'm lying. I don't know. Play with that on your own time. It's under neighbors. Okay. That kind of takes care of, and that's where here you're looking at the Relist map. Those are some options there. All right. Does anyone need a breather, or can I keep on rocking? Hi, Carlos. Okay. This next section is super important as a buyer's agent. Okay. It's all kinds of information in here. Show means you need to call the co-op. It's got an I box to open the door. Sometimes it'll say combo, but note you need to have an I box if you want to go show this property, and then it's occupied. Sometimes it'll say vacant. These are all just clues and hints of what the condition of the property is. Go ahead.
Call co-op, it seems to me that it says that a lot, but yet you can click on showing time. instead.
This is because it's like dated, like they haven't updated it, but it just means to call the use co-op is what it should say. Maybe,
It's usually shown.
yes, use co-op is what it should say instead of call, because
Yeah.
all of it is like
Okay,
now
all
scheduled.
right,
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point. Okay. The reason I'm pointing out that show field though, is if it's vacant and in someone you are out showing and you're a kind person and you have time on your schedule and they're like, hey, Elizabeth, can we go look at this one over here too? And I pull it up in MLS and it says vacant, then I'm like, okay, yes, we probably can. If it says occupied, then I'm like, I probably need to schedule something. So that's why I point that out. Negotiable is possession means negotiable. Sometimes it'll say immediate. If you've got somebody that that's what that means. When will they be able to give possession is what that field's about. You've got your list date of when it went on the market here. Exclusive right to sell is how the seller is represented. That field's important because it's a box you need to check on the offer. It's going to say how's the seller represented, how's the buyers represented. Sometimes it'll say exclusive right to sell, seller's agent. This is where you go find that to check that box. Sound good? You've got the listing office, the listing agent's name, their phone number, and then listing agent 2 is a designated agent. That's interesting that it has it on there. Okay. Another super important field that you want to learn to look at very quickly when you're showing houses is this is the compensation over here. So it's telling you that they're offering a 3% commission on the sale of this property. Sometimes you're going to come in here and you might see 2.5, or you might see 1,500, which means $1,500. The reason this is important is if it says 2.5 and you write an offer on it with your client, you make no mention of your commission, you've agreed to accept 2.5% as your commission. And as a buyer's agent, you can go back and say, hey, it says 2.5, but like my buyer's agency is 3%. Your buyer can make that up. It's a whole different story for another day, but it's something that you need to be aware of so that you can address it properly with your client when making that offer. And it's not a huge pay cut 2 days before closing. So always look at that. If you're wondering what gross sales price means, there's 2 things that'll show up in the CBO field. And what CBO stands for is commission based on. And it'll either say gross sales price, meaning if you write the offer for 300,000, it's based on 300,000, or it'll say net sales price. And what that means is if by some miracle you write it for 300,000 and you include, let's call it 5,000 in closing cost, the commission would be based on the net of that, the 300,000 minus the 5,000. So it would be based on 295. Does that make sense? Same kind of thing as if you wrote 300,000, but they're going to put a $10,000 roof on it, then it would be based on the net of that kind of a thing. That's one thing to pay attention to. Not a huge deal, but you need that for completing your DA request. All right. That's kind of what I would say is the important things to look at. Sometimes you're going to see here that there'll be a bonus filled out here, and that'll say that you get a bonus if you sell it by a certain date. You do have to disclose that to your client. All right. This is a section in which your client can see this publicly facing all these notes are. Jesus. The private remarks are going to be that showing agent info where things only you as an agent can see. So when we're listing a house, I'll tell you what information you can put in there. It'd be stuff that you might just want the agent to see, but note only you see that. This is an excellent field to check because if somebody is got multiple offers and they want to communicate out to everybody that they're accepting multiple offers through Sunday at 4 o'clock, a lot of times they don't have to, but they will update this field. It's also where they're going to update the field with maybe seller's preferred closing date is like the ideal closing date is June or July 1st, last week of June or July 1st. You're going to get some hints, some clues if you look there. So I would encourage you to look there. Okay. Am I going like way too deep or no? We're okay. Okay. Other things here that I would say exclusions. If they're excluding anything about the property, it would be listed in this field. So fireplace, sprinkler. Many of us smart agents would just put see seller's disclosure because there's a whole page of the seller's disclosure where you get to put those exclusions. You've got your heating. So what type of heating is here? Your cooling. I know that sounds silly, but there'll be some houses you're standing in and they're like, are these radiant heat floors? This is like what, and that's a quick place. Also a quick place to see if it's zone heating or cooling because it'll be zoned as something they can select and list here. You've got your city, your water source, and then so well might also be listed here, and then your sewer source, city public or septic might be listed there. Other important things, HOA includes, and then amenities. This sounds it's kind of interesting, right? Because sometimes you'll be like, why are there two? That sounds like the same thing. Sometimes the HOA will include, they'll be different because there's additional amenities that they can pay for. So like here it says HOA includes, and notice the swimming pool isn't included. I wonder if it isn't an additional fee to have access to the swimming pool. So this is what the HOA includes. Here is what the HOA amount is, $650 annually. All right. Will sell. You're like, what does that mean? Technically, the way that this is supposed to be is that this person is willing to accept a cash conventional FHA or VA loan. It does not mean they have to. I had someone call me the other day and say, well, it says that they would take a VA loan and they're not accepting our offer. And I'm like, well, it doesn't mean that they have to accept a VA loan, especially if they've got other options. Why I point this out is there's going to be some properties that are in a condition that they cannot go conventional or VA, or the seller is not willing to do what they need to do to have a loan get approved on it. And you're going to see here, it'll say cash or conventional. And so if you have a buyer that says, hey, Elizabeth, I want to go look at this property. It's a for sale, it's a foreclosure, but like we totally, like we're up for it. We're up for the project. And I know that they have to have an FHA loan. I will go and look when I'm reviewing the property to get ready to go show it to them. I scroll down to this will sell field. And if it says cash or it says conventional, it's a phone call to the listing agent, or it's a phone call to my client to say, hey, we got to go conventional if you want this property. But it's a good time saver for you to take a moment and look when you have those clients that you're not rushing out to show them a house only later to find out you can't write that FHA offer on it and you just wasted your Saturday afternoon.
But would you call a listing agent usually, because sometimes they may just put and not include everything?
Correct. Like it is, yes, if others, all factors considered. Is it already a house that looks like it's priced really well and it's going to get multiple offers? Maybe not make the phone call, right? If it's something that's been sitting there for a while and you're like, hey, maybe we can get creative and make something work, then I'm going to call, like, what's Cindy? I'm going to say, hey, Cindy, Elizabeth over here. I've got an FHA buyer. Tell me more about why you don't have FHA listed as will sell. Oh, there's blah, blah, blah going on, but like it needs handrails. What if my clients were willing to write into the offer, they'd pay to put the handrails up? Would we be willing to do that? So yes, like it depends on the situation and how much you're going to waste your time calling or spend your time. I shouldn't say waste. Okay, sorry. Another deposit. You're going, what does deposit mean? Deposit is where the earnest deposit goes. It's another field you need to check when you're making an offer, because that's going to tell you who on the contract to put, who's going to hold the earnest check. Kansas City Title in this case. You do not have to use the same title company if you do not wish. Dual title company, and there's a whole nother story another day. Dual title companies do add a little bit of complexity because you've got to have them talk to each other. I was always a big fan. Platinum were my people. I love Platinum. Obviously, that's why I have them in this office and told Steve he needed them in Overland Park. And I like to have my people that I know I can trust and they're going to take good care of my people. And then I know what's going on. So I was okay with the dual because it gave me control. But note that's where you, as the buyer's agent, yes. The only time, Mo, that can be an exception to that is sometimes with new construction, the builder will say, you use my title company, or I don't do your, you pay your own owner's policy. The other time that you might run into an exception where you have to use the seller's title company is relocation. Sometimes relocation companies say you have to use our title company. So there are a few exceptions, but yes, as a buyer's agent, every single time you can say, I want to use Platinum, we're using Platinum for our title work. But your earnest is still going to go to the seller's title company.
And times like.
On the contract, it's a negotiable term. If you leave the field blank, it's 3 calendar days. Correct? Everybody, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 3 calendar days.
Yes.
Yay. Look at Candace writing offers over there. Miss 2 buyer agencies and a listing. I'm so excited for you for tomorrow. Like tomorrow morning, you're going to just float into bold. I'm like so excited for you. Okay. Tax is the next field. And this is what the tax amount is. You see that there's a special tax here. That's if there's any assessments going on. And that then brings the total tax amount. That's what that means. We've got original, we talked about previous list price. We've got original list price. And then you've got modification date. That's mod date means modification date. That's when they went in and made a change. So again, if you're trying to see when they reduced the price without looking at the history, you could see it here. And then entry date is when they entered it into the MLS. So sometimes this date's going to be different than the list date because they might have entered it on the 1st of January, but they didn't take it live until the 17th because it was the pre-MLS. Or like this example, entry date's the 18th, but the list date is the 17th. And this Miss Cindy here, she waited her 24 hours. She got it in. She didn't get fined because you got to put it in within 1 business day. But her list date was the 17th and she didn't put it in the MLS until the 18th. Does that make sense? Why those dates may not man? Like, okay, I'm going real deep, guys. CONT date is contract date. And then close date is the date it closed. This is where you're going to have some information around when it sells. So you're going to have the brokerage of the selling agent's name, the terms. So if it was conventional, cash, that kind of thing will be here. You've got the agency financial concessions is if they paid closing cost. So if this said 5,000 here, you would know that the sellers paid 5,000 of the buyer's closing cost. And then major repairs is if they did any major repairs after inspections. So sometimes you're going to see here $10,000 roof. And then that would be probably the final of that. Does that all make sense, guys? Okay, we have 15 minutes. I might have underestimated how much time we needed, guys. My sincere apologies. Okay, I want to show you a couple quick fun things in our we can go through a little bit more. Creating reports. So when you're going out to show, I highly recommend either if it's on a tablet, fine. I always found it was helpful. I'm a paper person. I think you guys know that about me and the people that know me well, because I wanted something in case my tablet died or what I wanted something tangible. And it was one less thing for me to manage. So I had printed reports of everything I was showing. I would recommend finding one that you're comfortable with and then consistently printing in that one every single time. So you're going to select which properties you want, and you'll come down here to this print button. And it allows you then to print. Agent full is the one I really enjoyed using. It's because it's laid out very similar to what we were just looking at. And I could get really good at quickly looking at, oh, original list price was this. So they did a price reduction. Oh, of course. Yes, I would love to save it to my computer. If anyone knows how to stop it from doing that, please help me. It makes every time I download something, it makes me save it to the computer. Really?
No, you can have it open just in a PDF on your.
Candace,
You can.
you help me? Okay, here we go. Probably, maybe.
Yeah.
I know, and I just stopped doing that at one point. I don't know
You
why.
set it up that way. Yeah.
Kyle is like over me. He's like, I am not, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so as you can see, one of the reasons I liked it is that it looked very similar to what I was used to looking at in the MLS. And so I could quickly reference that the original list price or all of that information, right? So I always print it, and I would recommend that you print the agent full for each one for yourself, just so that it was easy for me to take notes on it or circle different things. So I always had that for myself. And then you have the ability, like me trying to figure out how to get back to where I was. You have the ability then to print one for your clients, client full. I would go through and just print some to PDF and see ones that you like, but I always gave a printed version to the clients. I wouldn't give them the agent full because they don't need to know all that secret information that we get, like the listing agent's name and phone number, or it's just a lot busier. So I often use the client full one and gave that to them. Make sense? Okay. Another thing, and I am so old and old school. I used this to do my directions when I was showing. So I would, yeah, I'm so excited to hear what other people do. And this is we'll cover this on Thursday when we go through showings, but you can do directions here where you click and it will put all the properties in order.
Oh, showing time is that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I think some people prefer to do it in showing time. That's where it's like, you got to find your own system and process and how you do it, but you can rearrange them here. I kind of sometimes would do it here because if I decided I was going to remove one, I would decide what I'm going to go look at, get them in order, and then add them to showing time. But have the ability to do that here. And this one tells you, this is something for Thursday, and we're short on time. So let's save it for Thursday. Yes, Elizabeth. Okay. Other fun things. We looked at this earlier. These are all, none of these are sold, but you have stats here. If you had active, pending, show for backup, sold, you could click stats and it gives you the statistics for the different statuses of what the average days on market are, those kinds of things. It's kind of a fun thing to look at. And then what I really want to show you is carts. So this tab here, actually, just kidding. We have 12 minutes. I can do this in 12 minutes, guys. Okay, save. We've created this search, or we have properties we want to send to our clients. One way you can just send properties over to your client is to click email. And then you can draft an email and send it over to your clients, copy yourself, and it's going to send just these 3 properties that we have selected this one time. Another option you have with your searches is you can go to the Save tab and you can click New Save Search. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, guys. Like if you're going to go trace the outline of a school district, or let's say that you want to keep an eye on the Brookside area. So you're going to set up what you consider the Brookside area and you're going to do a save search, but it's not going, and a save search never emails you. Okay. It just is a save search that you can sign in and go back to, and you've already got all your criteria entered there. Does that make sense? But those are some of the business cases as to why you were going to just name your save search. You can attach it to a client contact if you'd like, and then hit save. So that is one option. The other, a lot of times what you're going to do with your clients, and or if there's an area that you're trying to monitor and there's business cases, that's why you would do it as just to yourself as an agent. You're going to click new auto email. And on here, you're going to select a client name. If you don't already have a client created, you can always go in and create a new client here by entering first name, last name, and their email address. And then you can blind copy yourself on all those emails. I would recommend that depending on how many clients you have, so that you're getting an email at the same time they're getting an email. So you know, oh, a new house popped up for Jeff. Maybe I should, it looks like a good fit. Let me reach out to Jeff and see if he saw it and he wants to go see it tonight. So it kind of keeps you in sync doing it that way. It can get messy depending on how many clients you have, but I highly suggest.
They think it's coming from you, so they don't understand why you don't know.
Right, that's true. So when the emails go out, it looks like you got into the MLS and manually sent this to them. They don't know that you automatically sent it. So that's another great reason. You're going to have a subject line here. So note your subject line is going to be what goes out to Jeff every single time a message goes out. So you're going to want to name it like Overland Park Home Search. So every message that goes out to him is going to go out with Overland Park Home Search. So you don't want to, like, does that make sense? Okay. You have the option to customize a couple things here. Your salutation, you can change it to not say, hi, Jeff. Maybe he's your buddy. And you're like, no, I want to be like, yo, Jeff. because I'm funny and Jeff knows I'm funny and it works for us, right? You can do that, or you can just change it to Jeff. You also can change your welcome portal message. I highly suggest, and you can't unfortunately put a default one in here. I had a default one that I had saved elsewhere and I would copy and paste it over here. I would suggest you find a message that you like, that you feel comfortable, and it doesn't sound like a robot. This one sounds a little bit like a robot to me. My welcome message, and then I sent out every time, included instructions like, guys, you can build lists in here if you'd like to build a list, or here's the criteria. And I would list, per our conversation during our buyer consult, these are all the homes that are 4 or more bedrooms, 3 or more and a half bathrooms, listed between 450 and 600 in the Overland Park area. So I'm listing out all the criteria. Please let me know if any of that criteria changes or if there's anything additional you'd like to be included. That way they know if they end up changing their mind and like, hey, we really need 5 bedrooms, that I can adjust it. And then I'd have another paragraph that would say, no, you can build list in here of your favorites. In order to do that, just select the heart or the possibilities, which is a light bulb, and it'll put it on a list. Typically, I know if you heart something, that's something that you're very interested in, you want to take a look at. But I would use it as an opportunity to kind of explain the MLS and some of the things that they can do. Does that make sense?
So how do you know when someone's hearted something? I don't think I understand that on our end.
Yep. Give me 1 second. I'll show you. Okay. The other thing is the reoccurring email. This is the email that goes out every time there's an update. So again, if you and Jeff are buddies and you want to say, yo, Jeff, another property hit the market, let's go. Go in there, but it's going to be the same message that goes out every time. What? Like, you're going to, Candace, come on. Like, you got fun people in your world. Have fun. You can also edit your signature here. This is where it's going to tell you that it's going to give you a warning. This is not just the search criteria, but any new ones that are also a result. And then enable concierge mode, guys. We talked about this yesterday. Concierge mode means that you're the gatekeeper. So if you select concierge mode, that means it comes to you in your email. You have to say, yes, send it to Jeff before it goes on to Jeff. So use that sparingly, unless you really like to be a gatekeeper or you got something that's really, because otherwise you got to be on it, right? And then the next is show and reverse prospecting results. What that means, guys, is if you select that, the listing agent has a way to go in and pull all the agents that have buyers with auto emails saved with that property criteria, and you're going to show up on that list. It might increase your spam. I used to collect it all the time because I wanted my name seen everywhere. And I wanted it made it to where every time somebody, Elizabeth say, oh man, Elizabeth said he has one for this too. I mean, I did it on searches I had set up for myself, just because, not because I'm vain, because I'm strategic. Branding. No, I'm just kidding. But that's what reverse prospecting means. Okay. And that means that the agent can automatically note that you've got a buyer, and it increases their ability to market the house to you proactively. Enable favorite search. If you check enable favorite search, I'm going to go ahead and check it, and I'll show you where that shows up here in just a second, but it's on basically your dashboard, and there's some value in doing that. Here's where you select the schedule. ASAP means it's going to go out as soon as it's entered. Here's where we can say daily. And again, we talked yesterday about how you can do all AM, all PM, or just AM or just PM. It's still going to pick up all the matching criteria no matter when they click on it, even if that next round isn't ready to go out. And then you've got monthly. I would recommend ASAP unless, again, you've got somebody that's got like multiple really, really wide criteria of like any house in Johnson County, then maybe don't do it. I don't know. Okay, so you're gonna hit save. You asked a brilliant question about, remind me.
Hearts.
Yes.
They can heart it, and how do you see what
Okay.
they're doing with the search?
Let me show you that under contacts. And I did change all this, and you can see, oh, I don't know that I have anyone these days. No, Elizabeth. You can see how long it's been since I've been in here. So where it's going to show up, I probably have some hearts. No, let's look for myself. I bet you I have some hearts. That's not my name. Yes. Okay. So do you see here under this column, there's a heart. So that, like, I have one hearted and one favorited. And if I go in under this contact here, let me move these guys out of the way.
So you go under the contact.
Um,
Not the auto email. Oh, I see. Okay,
Are you getting it?
yeah, so I can see, oh, this person targeted 18 things.
We want to see the property.
You want to see the property I liked?
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a little bit since I've been in here. This is like, look at me.
20.
12 East 55th Street. I'm trying to think. Oh, this is when I was looking for properties to flip. Yeah, this thing was this. Yeah, look how long it took to sell. It sold for 350. It started at 399. Does that, so I would say if you're gonna go in and look at it, go to the contact and you're gonna see them here. And I'll look some more. I should know better, but you can see all my favorites and move between them here.
Mine's on my home, like on the first page under my matrix, you like scroll, like half a scroll and it's like recent portal visitors.
Yep,
And then there's a little man.
right here.
And yeah, that.
And
the
then you
heart
can
will
click
show
on
you
it.
where- The heart will show. Can you go back to where you were?
On your dashboard.
Oh, I see.
And then
Yes,
you've got,
yes.
and you can move these little widgets around, y'all.
Okay, so then you click on that person, the little man, or the name, either probably.
Yep, and this is what it looks like to them. This is what theirs looks like, if you want to look at it that way. But that's what your client's seeing.
Yeah, my client, I put a note in there and I'm like.
Yep.
Never like, don't do that, please don't do that.
Oh, but you can set yours in your settings again over here and another day, but go in your settings, you can be notified when they make notes. But I have done that before too with clients, guys, where it's nice to be able to have them make notes. And I made a note on this one because I think I did it as an example. Oh, it's not gonna let me. So the way to like communicate back and forth with the people. So you can add, they can add a note here to you, and then you can add notes back and forth to them. It's a whole different day. That's like advanced. You guys are like so advanced. Okay, you remember how we did add it, enable favorite searches? And that added it under this widget, my favorite searches. I would, if you don't have a ton of buyers, or if there's an area you're farming or something of the sort, I would recommend doing that. You only get 10, so do it for your favorite people. But it allows you then to come in here and then just click on that Overland Park search for Jeff. The other thing it allows me to do is I can click on manage, and it's going to open up the auto email. And then I can have a choice to say market update. And if I click market update, it's going to only show me the changes that have happened since the last time I clicked on it. Does that make sense? So then I'm not having to watch, like if freaking Overland Park has a gazillion updates a day, I don't have to look at every single email. I can make it my business practice to sign in at 11 and look at it at 11 and see what updates have happened since then, market updates. There's other fun stuff there too. Date sense would be allow you to do it from a certain date. I'm sorry, I did it wrong. Date sense is what's happened since the last time you pulled it. Market update is where you can say, show me what happened since February 1st. Have I completely confused you? Great. All right, recent searches is really fun, and I feel like I want to show you, and it's easy enough. You guys seem really, really on it. Carts. Okay, I know I am going to be over time, and I appreciate you hanging in there. You go to this cart tab at the bottom. See how I have 3 selected? I can go in and I can select Jeff. What was his name? Scott? Jeff Scott. Where are you, Jeff Scott? Here we go. Jeff Scott. And I can say add to, and it's going to add these 3 listings to his cart. So 3 properties were added to his cart. I can then come back here and I can change my criteria, and I can look at, let's look at what Olathe has, or let's look at what Lenexa has, or he, you know, whatever. I can go and search for other properties is what I'm basically saying. And then I can add more properties to Jeff's cart. And it'll say this time it only added 2 because 3 were already there. The reason I tell you this is that if you're getting comps and you're looking at it different ways, because I'm going to look at it one way, but then I'm going to go look at it maybe more than a mile out, or I'm going to go to the high school level because I can't find enough comps to support how the heck they're asking $500,000 for this house. You can do that and gather them all in this cart. And then you can click view cart. And no matter how many different ways you added it to the cart, it's going to open the cart for Scott here. Now you've got all of them gathered together. Does that make sense? And then you can come, I use this in a couple different ways, and there's a whole training, and I apologize, I've cut short. I ran short. I will link to you. I've done a whole training just on carts, and I'll link that to you and share that with you guys. But this allows you then to come in here and say, okay, now that I'm looking at all 8 of these, this isn't as good of a comp. I'm gonna like come in here. Now it's not as good of a comp. I'm gonna remove these checked. And then whether you're using it as a listing agent or a buyer's agent, it allows you to gather things and kind of manipulate it. I also use carts as a buyer's agent to put everything I'm showing that day in a cart. That way, when I'm out on the fly and if I need more information, I can just go to that cart for that afternoon and look at the information. Or if I'm gonna now, does that make sense? A way of gathering. I'll send you the whole training. I apologize that I'm a little late, but I think we did everything else.
How do you search by high school versus?
Oh, I'm so glad you reminded me. Look, she's like, I am not leaving here. That was the carrot. That is the carrot you got me here with, Elizabeth. I'm not leaving without it. Okay, let's go back to our search criteria. At the bottom, you see where it says add or remove. So any of these fields right here, I added myself. So click this add remove. And then you're gonna wanna find SR high in the field on the left and move it to the right.
The only issue is sometimes they don't put it in. You said that
Correct,
yesterday, so
correct.
I'm a little worried about that.
But it would allow you to go in and look, search on it, right? If you're kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So that's
Good to know.
tons of fields in here that there's all kinds of stuff. Like, I don't have all my favorites in here. Remarks. I've moved that one over before because then I can go in and search for stuff like completely, remodel or
It's like fenced-in yard.
yes. Public remarks. And you can add that over there. So there's all kinds of different, that's how you add different fields and then you just click back and now you're gonna have those extra fields. Sometimes it can be a little bit of like a fun game of trying to figure out what field is what because it's like the code label and not like what necessarily makes sense.
So in public remarks, could you just type in fence?
Jimmy, yeah, you want to 214 results. And so all of these are going to have, but you saw how I use the wildcards, both sides. Does that make sense?
Oh, you use it on both sides?
Yeah,
It
because,
could be before or after.
Correct.
It could be before or after something. Yes.
yeah, because I want it to be wild before and wild after. Okay. And so then this has, look at this, small house. This is a small livable house, 1 bedroom with a fenced in yard. There's your fenced in yard. There you go. Excellent. See how this one has 1,000 for the commission?
Oh, I have never seen that before. And do you know?
But
what
you
the
people,
essay-
you Overland Park people, I'm telling you, you gotta get out more. No, I'm just kidding. I'm so kidding. I'm so kidding.
We need more training.
Right? No, you just don't come to our part of town sometimes. We got all kinds of opportunities like this. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah. Well, this isn't
I
Steve
told
Jobs,
you-
this isn't even me.
I told you I was
Pretty
funny.
much us. Yeah.
I told you I was funny. Now you know what I meant.
So
but-
what are BAC, SAC, and TAC? Josh Hubbleman told me what they meant. They don't
Yeah.
mean what you might intuitively think they mean. Do you remember
Buyer
what?
agents commission.
No.
No, it's not buyer agent and you don't want that. It's, no, I don't. Like ask
Okay,
Josh again.
okay.
I should know that. Don't tell anyone I don't know. Don't tell Steve I don't know that. Don't tell Lucas. I've never known that in 12 years. I just knew which one to look at.
Well, we have
Okay.
something on you now.
Right? Yes.
Google says buyer agent commission.
Well,
Yeah,
Google,
Josh
I
told me
would
it's
not
Correct.
base your
Yeah.
legal stuff. Girl, especially your commission,
And
Candace.
the buyer
Right.
agent
Like
might
that's
be
an
right.
important
I
one.
can't remember, but it's not seller and it's not total or,
Okay.
Yeah, transaction broker, I think is
I
the
think it's
T,
transaction broker,
right?
yeah.
And then SAC is selling agent commission. I don't know what the other one is. So
Yeah.
maybe that'll be a bonus question
Okay.
for anyone that finds it out and they can
It's
share it
okay,
with
I
us.
can't remember.
Any other questions, guys, for today? I know I owe you guys the stuff from yesterday. I sincerely apologize. There was like Yes, I will send you the cards and there's even like a little like handout on that already. It's not in the new branding colors, but so forgive me. But life is good. And then Thursday it's showing houses, which is like really like silly and practical, but it's kind of like walking through showing houses.
It's a view.
No, that's a great question. Let me tell you, I'd love to answer that at Overland Park. Does anyone watch Elise? I'm gonna stop recording before I continue talking because this is where I just randomly talk about other stuff, even though.
Bye, Connor and.
No, they can still be on. I'm just